Welcome to the Roundtable. I'm Steve Davis, your host, and today we have a extremely, I think, interesting, informative program. But before we begin, we want to give a thank you out to Roger, a loyal watch viewer of our program here, and to all our other viewers. If you've got a request for a program or something you'd like to see here on the Roundtable, you can always email it, Steve Davis here at jctv@jeffco.edu. Give us an email if you have a program or a topic you might want some more information on. We're here to please. And speaking of here to please, with me I have two wonderful guests. We've got with me on my immediate right here is Bill Lee. Bill is an instructor here at the college, and he's an organizer and founder of the International Association of Structural Movers. And next to him is Steve Frazier, who's an author and historian of Valley Mines. And our program today is historical structural movements, and in particular, a structure that is down in Valley Mines that may or may not have historical value, and the preservation of that. So we're going to begin by maybe first talking about that structure. I believe this is a picture of the building that, Steve, you believe has historical value here in the county?
Yes, we do. We have evidence that it was once occupied by Joe Casey, who was born in slavery. He was born in Washington County, moved to Jefferson County, and he lived in that house all the time he was in Jefferson County. And he often sat on the porch and told stories about the slavery days to the other people of Valles Mines.
And this property, as I understand, has to be relocated, or
yes.
What's the reason we need to move it?
Well, first it was condemned because it's not really fit to live in as far as modern conveniences, and we wanted to move it to a safe haven, which is on our 200 acres near the museum at Valles Mines, the Lost History Museum.
And how did you acquire, where are the stories coming from for this structure that, where do you dig up your information? You're an author and historian of Valley Mines, but where do you get your information from?
All right, my family has been at Valles Mines since the 1760s.
I thought you looked familiar.
And and then we have a lady who, a very nice lady by the name of Jane Turner. She takes care of the Black History Department for us at the museum, and she done extensive research on Joseph Casey and where he lived, and that kind of done it all for us then.
Now, is the county stepped in and condemned this building, or is it just falling apart and you want to preserve it? Or, how did you get involved now with the request to move it?
Well, when I saw that it was being condemned, I knew it was going to be tore down then. So I talked first to the property owners, and then I talked to Chuck Banks, who is very good about recognizing historic things in Jefferson County now and preserving them. And he got us all together here, and we appreciate that. And we talked to the people that own the Valley Mining Company and own the building that the Lost History Museum's in, and we would like to move it there for its final resting place.
But if you can't move it, the county they're not going to recognize it as a historical value in its situation?
Well, I don't really know. It would be nice to have it preserved right where it is, but if they don't want to do that, the property owners in the county, then we have a home for it.
Okay. I assume if it's being condemned, obviously it wasn't being lived in for a while.
Correct.
Wild gas, no electricity, no water. But is it structurally safe, or if we move it, what do we need to do to this building to shore it up, I guess, so it preserves in its new location?
Well, Mr. Lee probably knows more about the actual moving of it than I do, but yeah, it would have to be, made solid. The back part may or may not go, the main log part would stay together probably pretty well.
Now, was this a free slave that relocated and lived here, or was he actually an owned slave at this time?
Well, he was an owned slave, but he was freed at the age of 10 years old, and then continued to live there and worked for the Valley Mining Company there.
Curious, the Valley Mining Company, they didn't own the slaves, did they, or were they?
They owned slaves, but not this one. This was owned by somebody else.
All right. So we've got this building. How old would you say? I mean, you dated it back, obviously, back to the days of slavery, but how long had it been built by then?
We're guessing probably about 1842.
So we've got a pretty good 100 and, almost 70-year-old building here.
Yeah.
Many buildings in Jefferson County still from that time period. I mean, I know we got St. John, and that's a very old community, and didn't realize Valley Mines was that ancient of a community here.
We have 5 other old buildings and many historic sites that are marked out at Valles Mines where the buildings were. So this would add nicely to the collection.
I guess maybe to give a plug to Valley Mines, because I got to apologize. I've lived here in the county about 26 years and really just lived, 10 miles outside of Valley Mines. And is it something that we draw tourists to, or could people take an afternoon and a weekend and say, hey, let's go out and see the history in Valley Mines? Or what can we do out there?
The museum's open every weekend from 9 to 4. And there are a lot of historic sites to see. We have a couple thousand acres there that you can hike on or ride your horse if you have a horse. We've got a fishing lake. We've got a lot of interesting things you can do once you're there,
All right, so let's just recap. Where are we going? Since Jefferson County, since we're going to get all the urban city folk from the northern part of the county here are going to want to take a weekend out where they can go fishing. Can they go swimming down the lake too?
We don't do the swimming thing just yet, but
fishing and horseback and just good old nature. Spend the day in nature.
That's right.
Where are they going, and how would they get there?
Well, we come right south on Highway 67 till you get to Highway V, which is the Valles Mines intersection. As soon as you make a right on Highway V, you would make an immediate left on Valles Mines School Road.
School Road, okay.
And that's where all the historic district is, and the museum is up there about 0.6 of a mile on the right.
And that's where I'd go to the museum if I wanted to go take a nature trail or walk around and bring my horse. Got a place to bring my trailer. I can park my horse trailer.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We got ample parking across the road from the museum, and we issue the permits in an office there next door to the museum.
Well, I know what my next weekend of excitement is. I'll bring some horses down there and go ride around there.
And we're very reasonable. It's kind of a nice, low-key, laid-back entertainment,
You're not giving Kimmswick a run for your money out there.
Well, maybe a little bit.
So we got our museum, and any other, other than the museum, any other shops in the area, businesses, restaurants, places? What do we got in the big old town of Valles Mines?
Well, we do have a restaurant that we kind of promote down the road a little bit there called CB Joe's Barbecue.
Okay, been there many times, yes.
Right across from St. Francis Park. See, Valles Mines is located in both Jefferson and St. Francis counties, so we're kind of on the border there.
Now, when I hit Valles Mines School Road there to go to CB Joe's, do I have to come back out on 67, or if I continue it down, does it cut over again, or?
Well, you can take the old highway and be right there.
That's good barbecue play. I got to put a plug in for them. And if they're watching, they can send the food here to Jefferson College anytime I'm around.
Yeah.
But no, I've eaten there many, many times. But said, here I am, and I didn't even know that I'm touring the historic Valley Mines. I guess we need better advertisements or signs up there. They got that little sign off the highway that says Valley Mines, and I've always wondered about these old community names going through that. Well, I appreciate, Bill, you taking the time to come talk to us, but we're going to move. These are more these are...
That's photographs I'd taken of the building.
Okay, these are more pictures of the structure.
Yes.
That hopefully Bill Lee here is going to supervise, participate, or at least advise maybe on how to move it or who to move it or contact someone to preserve this historical structure? Because that's what you do, right, Bill?
Yes, sir. What had happened, I taught this class at the school, at continuing education under Hal Nessler. And Chuck Banks had contacted the school because Mary Hayward and Steve Frazier had contacted them about moving this building. And he suggested that they contact me and maybe I could find them a mover. So Hal contacted me and I got in touch with Chuck Banks, taking the photographs, and about the same time there was a convention held in Iowa for the Mid-State House Movers Association and the Iowa House Movers, and I went to their business meetings and made the presentation to the Iowa business meeting and also to the Mid-States House Movers Association, and gave them photographs and told them about it and asked that they contact Mr. Banks and let him know that I was trying to work for him to help the county, as well as Dr. Nickel out of Southeast Missouri State, who has a building as well.
Well, you focus in your academia here with more of historic buildings and
Yes.
the movements, preservations, and the movement of them.
Yes.
But this seems to be, I guess, modern day. More and more people are trying to preserve and relocate their buildings, and that's what you teach a class basically on how to do it, or why to do it, or both. Or let's talk a little about your point structural moving for historical preservation class. I think if you can just say the title of the class, you get
graduated
it.
then.
You know.
All right. The basic thing on the moving the structure, it's on 3 points, not on 4 like a car. It's on 3. It's like a 3-legged milk stool. And at the class, I don't teach them the people how to do it. My customer profile is more like a historic preservation type person, and I teach them how it's done. So then whenever they contact a person of qualifications, they have the terminology. And I teach tools, equipment, procedure, terminology, and then I have examples. The one I have in front of me is the church in Most, Czechoslovakia, and that's what I'd written my master's thesis on, and it was out of Cape at Southeast Missouri State, and they gave me a creative project in lieu of a thesis, and this is
Right. Let's talk a little bit about this church in Most, Czechoslovakia, now Czech Republic.
Yes.
It's a church, we preserve it, but it's more than that. This is a unique structure
Yes.
for, I guess, the purposes of all the historians who are in this business. This is sort of your Taj Mahal of church movings or building movings.
This is the heaviest building ever moved by mankind on wheels. It's 12,000 ton. It was moved 3,000 feet on 53 hydraulic dollies that would pick up 500 ton each. And they were floated within 1/25th of an inch, and controlled by a Hewlett-Packard American-based company within a calculator. And this was done in 1975. It had already been completed before I found out about it, and the research was in the Czech Republic. And at that time, it was when we had the Cold War. And so it was what everybody calls a real challenge, because you had to go over and ask the questions, and they weren't allowed to speak oftentimes.
Well, the first question that I'd like to ask is, why did they bother moving it? Who moves that enormous structure like that?
The reason that they tore the entire town down because it's sitting on top of 87 million tons of coal. And they tore the entire town down in order to retrieve the coal for the country, the energy. And so they only saved one building, and that was a church. So they moved it. They could either keep the church on a column in the middle of a lake after it was, after they moved all the coal out. But anyway, what they done, they decided to move it, and they moved it on 4 sets of rail, pushed it with 4 hydraulic rams, and stopped it with 4. And I have photographs of that in the article. Gone back 25 years later and visited with the people, and I met once again Dr. Bresch, and he was the chief engineer on the job site. This is he and I in Prague and this is Vassilov Square, and this is the church in the process of being moved here, and this is the interior.
You got a curious question. This is the Cold War. This
Yes.
is us versus them.
Yes, Russia.
They're moving it. Did they
Yeah.
use Western technology,
Yes.
Western help, Western knowledge to move their product because they didn't have it internally?
Well, people do business. I'll spot you a couple examples, but we don't have time for that. But they bought the equipment, the calculator from Hewlett Packard in order to keep it in control. And I got to stay bed and breakfast with the gentleman that in '95 after the communists were out. I got to stay visit with him and his wife. They weren't allowed to visit with me the time before. He helped keep the Russians' rockets level. That was another job that he had.
Oh, okay.
So they didn't necessarily want him talking with me, I guess.
So they moved this,
And he wasn't a communist.
and they moved this church, and again, I say church, but it is at that time, or is it still today, the largest, heaviest structure ever
Moved on wheels,
moved on wheels.
and these were the wheels.
And this was, they had to put the trim, they actually put the rail system down just for the purpose of moving this structure.
Continuously. Take it from the back, move it to the front. Take it from the back, move it to the front. Take it from the back, move it to the front. And they done that for 3,000 feet. It took 30 days in which to do that.
But I pity the rest of the town.
Yeah. The preparation was about 4 years. The move, it took a month.
Wow.
And this is a gentleman that was in charge of it. And this is a lady that's running the museum. And this is the mayor of Most.
So,
In my philosophy, one way to preserve your culture is to move it rather than having it torn down. And that's what's going to happen here. If it's not moved or something done with it, they will tear it down.
and there's always been this debate, of course, what is historical, what is history? Do I have to wait 100 years, or are these glass and steel structures that they built in the 60s and 70s downtown, are they historical, or should I just level them because they're just got ugly and I want to build a bigger glass and steel structure with facade? I had this discussion just the other day about St. Louis City Hall. Now, ever there was, I think, an historical building that is so ugly that should be torn down is St. Louis City Hall.
I'll debate with you on that.
As to its ugliness or whether it should be torn down.
Well, it's ugly in the eyes of the beholder.
Yeah, and structurally, and I understand it's not possible. I mean, if they could clean the brick up and get the brand new, it would be a beautiful French architectural structure. But now it's just, okay, blew that one. Let's start over and move on. But I'm curious. We'll talk here with Bill Lee here, who's an instructor here at the college, on this topic, and it is really a fascinating topic. You made the mainstream. We've got Discovery Channel programs on movers, on moving structures. You're obviously around before Discovery Channel was, so what got you excited, involved about moving buildings? I grew up in the construction part as a kid. We wanted to break them down.
Well, what first got me interested was my mom and dad had just built a new barn and a new chicken house in the country down where we lived. And Mom had the old chicken house and she's wanting it torn down. And Dad asked me if I wanted it, and I said, I can't drive a nail in it, it's made out of oak. And he said, you want it? And I said, I can't use it, I can't cut it. And he wasn't talking about taking it apart. He's talking about moving it. So we moved it up on the hill, and I had the best clubhouse in town. I had 4 windows, a nice roof, and I went and got a stove and put in it, and had a door, and it was real nice, clubhouse. That was the beginning, and I was about 11 years old. And then when I was about 27, 28, I bought my first house and moved it in Arnold. And then when I was about 32, I bought another one and moved it, and I'm still there. I've been there for over 30 years.
And people haven't just been accusing you throughout your life of just being cheap and not wanting to just buy a new home and get rid of the old one?
Well, I come from people that were frugal.
Oh.
There's a difference between cheap and frugal. Cheap will have the money and not spend it. Frugal will get their money's worth.
Well, with that, we're going to take a brief break here and come back and maybe get a little more history about the Valley Mines and this building, and then talk to Bill about some unique and structures that have been moved throughout our country, and what modern technology can do to preserve our past today. So with that, we'll be back in just one moment.
It's like going to Harvard in Jefferson County.
Students have the best education possible.
Top-notch education.
Quality education is a 10.
I love the fact that Jefferson College is so close to my home.
It's great. I love it. It works for my schedule.
The housing is incredibly convenient.
Class schedules are very convenient for students.
I'm Stacy Self.
I'm Kimberly Clark.
I'm Nick Schaefer.
I'm Della Selman, and I discovered my future at Jefferson College.
All right, we're back here talking with Steve Frazier, who's an author and historian of Valley Mines, a very unique location of our county here in Jefferson. Something that I probably wouldn't have fathomed that most citizens here of Jefferson County and probably St. Francis County know very little about that area. And also is Bill Lee, who's an instructor here and an original organizer and founder of the International Association of Structural Movers, a pioneer in the, I guess, not only the preservation, but the preservation and relocation of historical structures. And through the, I guess, courtesy or knowledge of Chuck Banks, and these two gentlemen were put together to try to save a wonderful old cabin out in Valley Mines that has what many believe to be historical nature and value, dating back to, I guess, the pre-Civil War days and the history of the county and the slavery. And the county, unfortunately, in their modern code says that structure is unsafe. It's got to get torn down. It's got to be removed, and you gentlemen have a better idea.
Yes, sir.
Well, progress, of course, we know is necessary, and progress in Jefferson County is wonderful, don't get me wrong. But I'm glad that finally, Jefferson County is into the preservation of the many historic sites that are there, and or at least support it.
I always like to throw a monkey wrench into the county government, to my friend Chuck Banks, and I always say that Chuck is a friend of mine, so I say this tongue-in-cheek. Have we ever thought about really trying to mess with the county's plans by figuring how to get this on a national historical registry list where they won't be allowed to touch it? Find out some significant piece of history that occurred there. Maybe the slave ownership in itself would qualify through the Valley Mines Company, and maybe get the federal government to come in and say, no, you can't tear it down. I know Bill here wants to move it and preserve it, but maybe we could keep it in its location.
Well, Mr. Banks has assured us that it's not going to leave Jefferson County, and I'm really, really proud of him for that. I'm glad of that. And, just exactly what we'll end up doing, I don't know yet, but at least it'll be there.
And when we go to move it, we've got in front of us a unique artifact. It's looks like just really here a little toy trailer with some large wheels on it. But Bill, really, that's something.
It's like a toy dolly, and that's the dollies that go underneath the structure. It represents a hydraulic dolly with a hydraulic ram in it. It's basically something like a wagon, and that's just to give you an example of what dollies that go underneath the house. So whenever they're getting ready to move it, and you have your beams, your cross beams, and you have the dollies, and then it's being pulled by a truck, or sometimes they're hydraulic dollies.
And we just jack up the structure and just
move it on out.
Back this underneath and lower it down and just cart it away as you normally would.
What got me interested in teaching the class was a friend of mine got an Opal Award of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, and his name was Pete Friesen. And him and expert house movers and the International Chimney went together, and they preserved this 208-foot tall structure. But almost a year and a half ago, a little over a year ago, Pete passed away. And all of his knowledge and things that he knew, and he was the creator of the unified jacking machine that helped raise houses, where it would take guys 8 hours to jack a house up. He could have it raised in an hour with the unified jacking machine, and he was instrumental in helping, moving this building for his expertise. And he passed away, and all his knowledge is gone. I've done a great deal of research, and I didn't want to go and let my research go to the dirt.
So he didn't
that's the reason
bother
I'm teaching
putting
the
his
class.
knowledges or his inventions, he didn't put it down in writing for future generations to...
I have a movie out about him, and I also have a book. There's a book written out about him as well.
But the knowledge that he used to invent to lift these structures up,
Yes.
modern day
have it.
engineers do have it. So
All the house movers utilize his unified jacking machine today, and there's more than one type, that basically his principle.
And this was an example. This is a replica of the Cape Hatteras Lighthouse, and just shows another example. And when we think movements, we're thinking houses, barns, very physical structures that are lengthwise. This is something where we can take a skyscraper in theory.
Yeah.
I mean, what is a lighthouse but nothing more than
208 feet tall. Mr. Schiller, house mover, a structural mover out of Chicago, moved a church in Chicago in 1893, and it was 225 feet tall with a steeple on it. He was also the gentleman that raised the Illinois State Capitol, 11 feet tall. And the Illinois State Capitol is where Abraham Lincoln ran his campaign from the governor's office in 1860, and is where President Obama, our president today, started his campaign from that building. And if it hadn't been for a structural mover, we wouldn't have it today.
And in fact, we talk about...
And he moved it in 1899.
Okay, and we talked about the Illinois moving. Now, the latest, though, the Illinois State Capitol, we talked about structure moving. But that was raised in its current location?
Yes.
It was actually, when we say moved, it really wasn't moved location.
raised up.
It was raised up.
If I put you up 10 feet in the air,
And
would
they
that be
built
moving you?
and they built another, basically, floor
Underneath it.
underneath it.
Right. The reason that they did that is they needed additional space for the county. The county owned the building at the time, so they needed additional space, and they were, they were going to tear it down. But Abraham Lincoln was important. But, he had made speeches and so forth from there, and he'd ran his campaign from that office, so that made the building important. Him as well as other people. So they didn't want to tear it down historically.
Well, I've got
Had a historical value.
I just had a brain thought here, but I have the question is, the cost involved with moving as opposed to rebuilding, just demolition and rebuilding. Is it expensive or very expensive to move these or raise these buildings?
Everything costs.
Well, I know everything costs, but I'm just, the brainstorm I had was, for years and decades, we've all been talking about, we've got this wonderful historical building downtown Hillsborough called the courthouse. And we all know we need a new courthouse. And it's too small for its purposes and so on and so forth, and we don't have area or land to build a new one. I'm thinking, why don't we just jack up the courthouse and build 2 floors or so underneath our existing courthouse, and that would give us all the space we need.
I'll vote for you.
All right. So, Chuck, if you're out there and the county's got an extra few million in their coffers here, we can just build under our courthouse and keep the historical structure that's there and build a modern 2-story structure.
Okay, let me give you some figures and where that you may change your mind on moving a structure. My first house I bought for $1,500, moved it, spent about $20,000 to have it relocated. This is back 30 plus years ago, and sold it for $40,000. I made 20 grand. Then I took that money and bought another one, and I bought a 2,600 square foot house, and I bought it for $7,000 because they were going to tear it down. Mm-hmm. I saved it. I bought it for $7,000. The man that had bought it to build a subdivision, he didn't want to, he didn't want to move it. He hadn't figured out how to move it, and I had. And he paid $150,000 for it, and I bought it for $7. And then I bought a lot for $5, set it up, and I had about $60,000 tied up in a $100,000 house. Is it worth it? Was to me. Being, being poor, as I see it as poor, I wouldn't have never been able to afford, put it this way, I wouldn't have been able to afford that type of a house working at the salary I was making at the time. So, and I've had the house for 30 years. Now, this is a Northern Bohemian Gothic architectural style church, and if it's tore down, there's no more. So there's one way to preserve it, and they needed the coal. So the town decided that they'd move to get support from the governments, more than one, and they'd move it outside of town. So they preserved it and they saved it. And I'm sure there's a way that you can figure out. Springfield, Illinois figured out that they needed a place to needed to save their building. So what they decided to do is raise it up 11 feet and add an additional floor. And now that they've taken it down and moved it back to its original, and that's where Barack Obama started his campaign from. I wrote an article about that as well and got it published in this magazine.
Structural movement. By the way, I'm still favoring the church on the lake theory, that we just dig the coal mine around the church, flood it with the lake, and then we have a church on the lake.
Church on Lake.
That's the way to church.
You know, that's it. But
You do have ideas.
that's it. All of them weird. But we talk about structure moving, and I actually just saw a program recently where there was a developer, I guess, wanting to build a subdivision out in St. Charles area, and the woman who owned the land didn't want to leave her home, didn't want to leave her, and the deal she made was they relocated her house, her barn, everything, and even the trees. I mean, they had to plant the trees to make her new location look as close to where she did, and that was a major move just right here in the St. Charles area.
Right.
So what other famous buildings that we might have heard about that have been moved, or is there that you can give us some reference to?
Okay, buildings can be moved in pieces, sections, or as a unit. This is a unit. Pieces can be moved in pieces. Logs.
Yeah, I've moved 3 or 4 log houses myself, but we done it the old-fashioned way. We numbered the logs, took it down, and put it back up, and it's much more time-consuming. You're looking at a year with no problem, doing it that way. So.
And we moved some buildings here in Hillsborough. If I made the.
A building that's close to St. Louis is in Fulton, Missouri, and that's and that structure is the Winston Churchill Memorial in Fulton, and it commemorates the famous speech that the Sinews of Peace that Winston Churchill made at Fulton in 1945 after he'd lost the election. And he was introduced by Harry Truman, and that was where he coined the phrase of the Iron Curtain.
Right.
From Stettin and the Baltic to Trieste and the Adriatic, behind that Iron Curtain lie all the ancient city-states of Central and Eastern Europe. And this is an example of one of the ancient cities in the Iron Curtain. And I've done this research during the Iron Curtain period. And that building there was an old bombed out church built by architect Sir Christopher Wren in England, and it was bombed out during World War II and on an incendiary bomb, and it was burned out. And they tagged and dismantled and moved it to Fulton. Tagged and dismantled it, because a building can be moved in one of 3 ways, either in pieces, sections, or as a unit. And that one is a close by and very important. The other one is the old Illinois State Capitol in Springfield. That's another major building that's been moved. There's a lot of buildings around that's been moved. This is an example of something that was major that they wanted to preserve, and it's 208 feet tall. And Pete Friesen, a friend of mine, was instrumental in giving the expertise on how to move it. And plus they'd saved other buildings. That's just one of the most important things that he had moved. They have a book out about him now. In that book, I liked the book real well because it mentioned me in it about 3 or 4 pages.
Well, that's good. Well, what we've got here is, I guess, history in a modern, I guess we'd call this soon to be hopefully a mobile home that we're going to relocate to another area here in the county. Steve, I wish you all the luck, and hopefully that now, as I mentioned to Bill, one of the reasons I also mentioned to Bill is obviously there's all these expenses involved in moving it. Now, this is a private home or structure that we want to move for basically to a charitable organization, or the Valley Mines Museum, is it a for-profit?
Well, we're in the process of forming the foundation now for the,
So you want to be a not-for-profit foundation?
yes.
I've never yet met an organization, a charitable organization or any type like that, that didn't always need money. So my question is obviously you're going to need money here to move this building.
Oh, yeah. It's
I mean,
gonna
Bill's
take-
not going to jack it up himself and haul it away.
That's right.
Do you have an address or something in case one of our listeners would like to join the preservation wagon and help assist you? Is there any address you could give us maybe
Sure.
that we could maybe send a little donation to help defray some of the cost here?
Just send it to the Lost History Museum at 14116 Valles Mines School Road, Valles Mines, Missouri. It's 63087.
And
That would take care of it.
and any
Or
donations they
come
can
out
send
and visit
down?
us and bring the donation with you. We'd be glad to have you. Glad to show you the museum and show you around the property and all the historical sites.
Well, I think that's a wonderful, and as much as I'm in the deconstruction mode of malehood here, no, I'm actually in favor of preserving wonderful structures. I guess you say beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, because there are so many glass and steel structures that I think were just cookie cutter mass production downtown structures, and then there's some beautiful old buildings, and I guess we just need to wait 50, 60 years to determine the beauty of the ancient structures. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very, very much
Thank you for
for
having
being
us.
here. Again, this was Bill Lee, he's an instructor here. If you've got some interest more into the how and why, it's a continuing education course, and next time it's coming up here, just contact the college and give them my name, because I do get a commit. Oh, no, I don't, okay? And Steve Frazier here. Steve, with the historian of the Valley Mines area, if anything you want to know about that
Thank
area,
you.
this is a gentleman you can ask. He knows where all the dead bodies are buried out
Yep,
there in
all
Valley
the bodies
Mines.
are buried.
Again, gentlemen, I want to thank you very much. This has been another edition of the Roundtable here at Jefferson College, JCTV. Thank you very much, and until our next program.